Town clock is 2 minutes.
All right, very good. Let's get started. I would like to call the meeting to order, please. And then Judy, please do the roll.
All right, Neil Butnick is on Zoom.
Yep.
Neville, Tom Schulte,
Here.
Amy Carroll, Todd Lavieri,
Here.
Michael Chin, maybe. See, Chris Labrie,
Here.
Victor Alvarez.
Here.
Maria Weingarten, is she coming?
No, she's not. No, she can't make it.
All right, Robert Hamill,
Here.
Colin Dobbin,
Here.
and our first selectman's president, Kevin Monahan. All right, so, well, should you want a seat for Michael, or do you want to
Yeah,
wait?
no, I would say no.
You think yes?
I would speak for Michael.
Okay. So, well, Maria, so, Bob Hamill, we'll seat Bob Hamill. Give
Yeah.
motion.
So moved. So moved.
Second. All right.
Second. Excellent.
All right.
Okay, thank you. A motion to approve the minutes for September 15th as well as September 29th. Is that feedback? Motion to approve?
Moved.
Move.
Second.
Did you get those? Victor, a motion.
Who was it? Was
Victor
Victor?
was the motion, Tom with a extremely speedy second.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Oh, Neil, yeah. They need you to go on mute.
Tucker always does that to me.
I see Neil's hands up. I don't know what he voted for, though.
You know, that's being recorded, Neil.
Okay, wow. Let's go to item 3, please. First selectman update.
Good evening. All right. COVID, you hear about it weekly on Thursday callouts. Our cases remain modest due to our very high vaccination rate. We started this week with only people over 21, kind of surprisingly. I don't know if your students are getting reported as rapid tests. I don't think they get reported to the state as if they're rapid tests, but really. But anyway, so the we started twice a week testing at Irwin House instead of Lapham, and also once a week Pfizer booster shots currently for 65 and older and those who have compromised immune systems. And that starts Thursday at Irwin for vaccination. So we're doing very well on both of those fronts. Hopefully, there's been news perhaps about the expansion of Moderna very soon. A lot of our seniors got Moderna, so we don't have as many. We also offered to have the Darien senior population come up to Irwin House and get booster shots. So capital projects, high school roof is nearing completion, as we were told this morning. The solar RFP is going out for the high school. Saks Solar is done except for some electrical connections, which are due to supply chain problems. The Saks CHP will commence soon after the 2 boilers are finished. The Playhouse roof is underway, as you may have noticed. The Eversource gas expansion is continuing. We hope they're going to get to in the ground at Elm Street and Upper Elm, Upper Pine, Grove Street before December. They want to. And they're talking about further expansion behind the Y as far as the residential neighborhood. So then Aquarian Water, as you know, you can't miss it. They're in the Main Street. They're in Elm Street. They're killing me. The road conditions are terrible.
Yeah.
But we need new water mains in those roads. So Main Street will be paved in a couple weeks, Lower Main. And the Playhouse, we're having weekly meetings now with the plan for an operating plan and also for the plan for capital improvements, and we'll bring that forth probably in November or December. And we can talk about that. The PD building is on the agenda. I'll tell you about a couple of developments there. Soundview Lane cell tower should be operational for AT&T in November. And
Bless you. That would be wonderful.
well, and Verizon soon thereafter.
Who dropped on me 3 times.
Actually, we had a call with Verizon about what's happening with their service. They said it's seasonal. I mean, there's something going around with Verizon. I mean, I'm dropping calls left and right with Verizon. I threatened to change the T-Mobile, but there's something definitely going on beyond seasonality.
Yeah.
And then the Upper Ponus Ridge Tower should come to the town in a couple weeks, and then Ridge Tower come to the town in a couple weeks, and then Ridge Tower come to the town in a couple weeks. Carriers have signed on for the Upper Ponus Ridge Tower, and we should get it to the setting council by January. And then finally, I'm not sure we had announced back in September that Diane Wilson is now our comptroller. We're very happy with she's gotten underway. And we've made arrangements today to have the pension servicing outsourced with the Hooker and Holcomb, who are our consultants anyway. So we will save money by doing that. So I think that's my update on that, and we'll.
Do you have just a current figure on the percentage of the town that's vaccinated? Eligible to be vaxxed, that is vaxxed?
I think it's like 75.
Yeah, it was.
You know, there's 4,000 kids that are not eligible, so that brings our percentage down.
Okay, thank you. Any questions?
No.
Is there any library update? Just MOU signed, everything going
I will
forward
sign
with
the
that?
MOU. You know, we've received all the due diligence requests we've had pending since August 26th for the library. They finally completed them today, so we're prepared to sign the MOU. And the building permit, I mean, people are accusing me of sitting on a building permit. I have nothing to do with building permits. And I'm being told, I don't know if Tiger's on, that it should be soon.
Here.
They have a lot of work to do.
I'm here. Yeah, they're every department's finished their initial review. We're waiting for some comments back, and then we'll be able to move forward at that point.
Under the lights.
Tiger, yeah. I'm sorry, Tiger. I forgot where you were.
Have them bun.
But you're listening. Anyone need Tiger? I hate to have listening during a baseball game.
So on the MOU, the library has signed it as of today. They gave it to you, I believe.
Yes.
Signed and certified.
Right.
Okay, so it's the next and last step is you. Is to
Right.
sign it. Okay.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I thought they signed it right away, the
I
MOU.
did too.
I thought
That's
it was
the-
signed immediately by the
They
library.
delivered it today.
We delivered it today.
Wow.
Okay, so then you're ready.
Well, it
ready.
was sent back because town council made some changes, which were mostly language to conform with some of the comments that were made during the town council meeting. And then it went to our attorneys, right, Kevin? And then back out to the library. So all the libraries signed that initial version. That wasn't in fact the last version.
Okay, so right now we're at the last version.
This
It can
is
be
the
signed
last
off.
version. It's not official until Kevin signs it.
But it is today, it was received and notarized, signed by the library and given to you just today. So
Signed on October 11th by the library.
Okay.
Okay.
all right.
yesterday. Okay, so anything else?
No,
Next item. So we have an exciting idea that we want to share, and you all saw the item on the agenda. I just want to give a little bit of backdrop on this. As I think you know, I was the Board of Finance liaison to do the future negotiation for this contract. And when we met with the teachers in early September-ish, we had a wonderful presentation, including a video of all that had happened really over the last 18 months. And it was really remarkable. We had, teachers who were teaching our children while they were hiring people to homeschool their children because where the towns they lived in, their schools were closed. I think people know that, but let that sink in for just a second, right? That was unbelievable. So in any event, I had an idea I brought to Katrina. Katrina thought it was a good idea. We took it to Brian, to Dr. Lutzy, and thought that what about a thank you bonus, $1,000 for every teacher in this period of time that was there. The superintendent liked the idea a lot, came back and determined the number of people that would be eligible, certified teachers, and they needed to be here. They needed to be, and there was some prorating. It was $1,000, but maybe if you were here for 10 of 11 months, it was some prorated number. So the proposal here is to approve a special appropriation, as you can see, for $413,000 for the 427 certified teachers. The funds would be from the general fund. There was a little confusion. I will take responsibility for that. It would be nice if it could be from the ARPA funds, but the decisions on how to spend the ARPA funds aren't quite made yet. Now, the ARPA team could come back and tell us they'd like to do this, and we could accommodate that. But for this, will come out of our general fund. And the purpose to move it along a little was so that we could approve it, the town council could approve it. And the point was, we'd like to have it in their paychecks, in their December paychecks. So anyway, I wanted to share that story with you a little bit and ask for a motion to approve the special appropriation. Although any discussion, if anyone has any comment or question, I'm happy to answer any of that to the best of my ability.
I have a motion first, so.
Yeah, so a motion to approve,
So moved.
Chris, any discussion?
In a second.
Actually, we have to yes, in a second.
I have a discussion point.
Okay, fine, that's fine. Second, Neil, second.
It's Chris.
Yeah, I'll do second, but I do want to just say one thing about it. You know, it really not be setting precedent. And, you know, in all the municipalities you look at, people don't give bonuses. We're not a corporation. So this is a terrific testimony, but also probably a one-off, right?
What was it?
What'd you say, Neil? Did you say a one-off?
Yeah, a one-off. In other words, this isn't going to work into the compensation section. We're a government. Governments don't give bonuses. You know, I'm just a cheapo. I don't want to rain on the parade. I absolutely support it, but just duly noted that it's not something that to be expected if there are other tough years necessarily, because we're lucky we have this kind of money.
I'm glad you're the one who seconded it and then made those comments. To show your support. Thank you. Any comments, please? Yeah, Victor.
Yeah, I have a comment. So I think it's a great idea because during COVID, I was driving around town and you see signs saying, "Thank you, heroes, for doing everything that you're doing. Thank you, essential workers." And even the Gulf Station has a sign saying, "Free cup of coffee for essential workers." And now we're kind of putting our money where our mouth is and saying, "We really appreciate what you people did, and here's $1,000." I think it would be great if we could use ARPA funds for these kinds of things, because I think the town has put forth a bunch of ideas. I know we're going to be talking about this later, but I think if it's possible to do that, we should consider giving people bonuses, because I think that's where the money makes the most difference. I also think that there are people that have been left out, like the teacher's assistants, like people who work with disabled children, like the van drivers, maybe the bus drivers. So I know that they're aware that these bonuses are being handed out. They're essential workers too, so they might want to be considered in the future.
So let me just address that, and I'm glad you brought that up. This is what it is. It's this amount of money for these teachers. Police, fire, other employees, I think is a conversation we have to have. That's not tonight. There has been no proposal for that. And that's something I think everyone would like to look at and discuss, and people have talked about. And I think we're all certainly supportive of having that conversation. Just so you know, that would be something I think we should evaluate and consider 100%. That's not for this piece, but it's a great point, Victor. Thank you. Other input, questions? Okay, well, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Yeah, we saw your hand up. If they count that.
And you
Okay, thank
seconded
you.
it.
Motion's passed. Thank you. Thank you.
All
Great.
right.
Katrina, thank you. I appreciate the support. Yeah, thank you. Okay, next item is Dr. Keating on the health services.
Good evening, everyone. I can't really see anybody, but I'm glad to be here tonight. So last year, we had a lot of conversation around the Internal Services Fund and where the numbers should come out. And we wanted to give an update to the board this evening so that we could go over our year-end closing numbers so that you had a good sense of where we're at, and kind of give you an update of where we stand currently through the first quarter of this current fiscal year. So, and the year-end statement, the unaudited financial statements that we had sent out back in September, the last exhibit actually was the Internal Services Fund. And we had reviewed this at a Board of Education Ed Resources Committee, and Todd was fortunate enough to, we were fortunate enough to have Todd sit in on that meeting so that he could actually go through the numbers with us. Surprisingly enough, I mean, we were for the first time in my career, my years here, actually over budget in the Internal Services Fund when you actually forecast it out to the next fiscal year. And it was really truly a combination of high claims, which also translated into increased expenses for stop loss insurance for this current fiscal year. At the end of the day last year, we needed an additional $411,392 to actually come within the town's reserve policy. And so we brought that to the Board of Education because we did have those funds within our budget to allocate at year end for the Internal Services Fund to ensure that that if all the estimates for expenditures pan out, that we would have sufficient funding in the Internal Services Fund for the current fiscal year of 2022. So the board did approve that at their meeting in September, and the transfer was made in last fiscal year. When you take a look at the financials this year, you're going to see a large fund balance of $5.2 million. That fund balance is projected to be completely expensed in this current fiscal year, including the reserve fund of 40% of the corridor. 60% of the corridor, as you know, is retained in the operating budget on the town's general fund. So right now it does appear that we're going to have sufficient funding. Just to let you know that our current fiscal year, our claims are budgeted for $13.2 million. Right now they're at 5.2 over the first quarter. That does not include stop loss insurance payments that we anticipate getting. So we don't want to sound the alarms right now in terms of any shortfall for the current year or any erosion of the corridor. But it's something that we're going to be keeping our board abreast of on a monthly basis so that they're aware of where we stand year to date on a monthly basis. And you'll be seeing that in the statement of accounts as you receive them. So overall, we were over our claims projections by $100,000. The IBNR had to be adjusted up for anticipated claims of $200,000. And our stop loss, even though we had projected an increase of $265,000, which was over 30%, we needed another $86,000 for this current year to fund that account up. Fortunately, we go out to bid with the town on our stop loss insurance. And as we bid it out in any single year, the carrier cannot increase our premiums by more than 50% of the rate, which for us this year was fortunate because the stop loss insurance carrier for 2021 paid us $1.4 million in insurance claims. And our premiums last year were a little bit over 760,000. So we were a pretty significant loss leader for them. Our premiums this year are going to go up to $1,093,000. And that still is below what they paid out last year. And we're expecting some pretty significant payouts again in 22. So we'll keep the boards updated as we move forward on the Internal Services Fund. We will need to talk about, I think, in as a meeting as a committee, how we're going to fund our operating budget for 23 for the ISF, because we've been dropping our operating budget the last 2 years because we had such good claims experience for more than 5 years. And that now is not, those funds are not now available because we've used them. So we'll have to have some conversations with the Ed Resources Committee of the board and our liaisons from the town boards. Happy to answer any questions on that.
So real quickly, it sounds like we're fine for the short term. When you come in February to do the budget, is that a good time for a checkpoint? Sounds like we're nothing necessary between now and February. Looking at Linda, right? Yeah, two. Okay.
Yeah, we'll probably do it more frequently than that with our board, and you'll have
Right.
the attachment will come with the statement of accounts in a couple of months. And if you see that and there's any questions or follow-up, just reach out.
Perfect.
We'll comment.
Okay, any questions? Yeah, Amy.
Joanne, just in terms of the reason behind the increase insurance claims and expenses, is it as you had projected that with COVID, people were putting stuff off, not moving forward with procedures, and with things improving a little bit, people were getting back into a more robust medical care? Or do we have just, is it just the cost of procedures? Is it a couple very difficult cases? I'm just wondering if you're able to just put some color on why,
Sure.
the reason behind the increase.
Sure. So when we came through the budget process for 2021, and as we reforecast it, we kept our projections for claims on a net basis at 13,178,000. We came in at 13,266,000. So the claims projections were very close. As Joe has explained, Joe Spurgeon, our consultant, our claims really dipped by over $2 million in 2020. And the reason for that, as we anticipated, or as we thought, was because people were not receiving COVID-related services. It didn't mean that the claims wouldn't have been incurred had we had, but they did not incur. So as we moved into 2021, we had a combination of people starting to get services again, but we also had several very high claimants. We had 3 as we went through the year. So they all maxed out at the 300,000 attachment point for the specific. And then at the end of the year, we had 2 additional claimants. So the modeling that Joe did us was remarkably close when you really think about it.
We have the same thing on the town side.
Yeah.
A handful of very large claims.
Got it?
Yeah.
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 Thank you.
Other questions?
Can I just ask, you said that there are 2 additional high claimants that have come forth since. Are there 5 projected then for next year, high claimants?
So every year, Joe takes a look at the history and how many claimants actually went over the 300, and we back out, the excess over 300. And I believe for this current year, there's 4, and that's typically what he does is 3 to 4.
Thank you.
So we are very close, when you think about our claims projections for this current year at 13.2 million. We came in at 13.2 million this past year. We have a history of being pretty static in our claims once we hit a plateau. And as you recall, a few years ago, we really felt like we hit a new norm in terms of where our floor was for our claims. So we're going to continue looking at it. And if it does spike up, we're going to let the boards know so that they can prepare for that.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks. I didn't know if you wanted a quick update on our COVID expenditures for last year.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay. So last year you gave us a special appropriation of $1.9 million. We ended up spending 1.6 million. So the non-lapsing account has a carry forward of 300,000. And the reason for that is that we received 250,000 in direct grants from the federal government. One was CRF and the other one was ESSER 1. So we were able to carry forward more funds than we had planned on at the time we presented our budget. That's good because we had delayed putting in a special appropriation for COVID, as you probably recall, at year end, pending our reconciliation of the account for 2021. So we don't expect at this time that we'll be coming back to the town for any additional funding for COVID. We feel like we have sufficient funding at this point in time. I also wanted to let you know that at year-end close, we did have an additional $1.3 million in our budget, just north of that actually, that will be coming back to the town for your fund balance.
So is that in your financials?
Yes.
Is
It
Okay.
is, yeah.
And I'm sorry, I was asking Linda if they were in this.
Oh, okay.
And on the $300,000 balance, what happens with that in the non-lapsing?
It stays in the non-lapsing and then we'll reconcile at the end of this fiscal year.
Okay, in June.
If it gets new stuff, we'll get new stuff. If not,
Gotcha.
at some point.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Anything else, Joanne?
That's it.
Great
Thank
update.
you.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
next item's the library loan project. Linda, do you want to come up here just to talk about this and where we are? And people remember that we had a grant that we approved for $10 million. Then you remember we've agreed to be the bank, and we are going to offer the opportunity for working capital up to this amount, working capital that I don't believe is needed for over a year, I believe. So you could give us an update on all of that and any loan documentation and the building budget and everything. Yeah.
Sure.
Or Chris and Neil too.
So the library funding had two components. There's the initial $10 million grant that was approved by both Board of Finance and Town Council last month. And then the second component was the short-term financing to gap financing while the donations and contributions and pledges are being raised. And initially, you'll recall, there was a discussion, I believe it was with Bankwell, to go that route. But once we looked at the interest rate that would be charged, this was going to be a better opportunity for doing that. And therefore, what you have in front of you is the full bond authorization for the 13 million. We will not issue bonds for that full amount when the time comes and there's that need to finance, and then we'll issue those bonds to the library. Those will be repaid by the pledges that are outstanding. It's just basically just interim financing as the pledges come in. And so we will issue, most likely, because those are short term, we'll probably do short term notes, no longer than 5 years, possibly 10, kind of depends. But the plan is to try and be out for as short period as possible, just to make up for that difference. And so that's what this is. So it is a bond, just like any other bond. So it comes before you, it'll get noticed, and then it goes to Town Council for final approval. And then when they are ready to draw down on that, they'll let us know, and then we will provide that financing at that point, and we will issue these notes in conjunction with our, right now, I think we're doing this twice a year, our other typical bond financing. I believe the MOU stated that the ceiling was a third of the total project cost, and that's how we came up with that 13 million number. It's from the MOU.
So question for Chris maybe and for Neil. Where are we on the contract? On the construction?
Well,
GMP.
yeah, we haven't seen the final signed GMP.
Okay.
We're told it exists, but we haven't seen the final version. I think there are some subcontractors that are still in need of being signed up. So in theory, it's done. In practice, we can't verify.
There's nothing like penalties, though. We're in the safe zone in terms of, the amount of weeks where you could get a penalty or something. So
I think there are handshakes, Neil, right, with subcontractors, but the actual contracts are not necessarily signed. And so that's why we've never seen a final GMP with all the numbers and all the subcontractors and everything, what we wanted to see, which was a final building project budget.
But it sort of seems to me that if we have a total project budget, and then we're going to have a guaranteed maximum price contract, and between those, the GMP contract and the budget, you can figure out the soft costs that aren't covered by the GMP, and then you can turn to the library and say, well, what's your cash on hand? And then add our $10 million grant, and then you're left with the resulting hole that we're trying to fill, which is going to be the loan amount. So it seems like, to me anyway, and I haven't been totally involved in all this, but it seems like this is a cart in front of our horse, in the sense that we haven't seen the GMP. And remember, a lot of the special meetings in the late hours and what does this draft say and all that was all designed to be able to get the library to pull the trigger on the GMP and don't let those subs walk away because they gave us a really good. And so the fact that I don't have that just causes me to kind of say, I don't really have anything that would at least have me say, oh yeah, no problem, let's just sign this up, right? In other words, there's no magic date that says this has to happen at this meeting, right? We have an MOU that was designed and covered the $10 million grant, no problem, with an expression or willingness to say, well, we will commit to fund the whole up to, and again, I think the third project cost was directionally correct, right? Like this is kind of what we're anticipating, right? So it seems to me, let's get the GMP. Let's see if there isn't a revised or updated total project budget. Let's take a look at how the fundraising and cash on hand looks. And let's, at that point, we can probably triangulate what's the real hole we're trying to fill. That makes some sense. In the meantime, it makes some sense to me that we would then start about drafting a loan agreement.
So this feels a little
You know,
premature.
the problem with your logic is that for them to sign the GMP, they have to have the confidence they have the resources, right? Otherwise, if you don't prove this tonight, they're probably going to go back and start talking to Bankwell again. Remember, they were going to have 2 months.
Oh, wait, they've never said that to us. Where did this come from?
That was perfect. That was their logic as I understood it,
Yeah.
Kevin. That was the logic on why we had to pull the trigger and
If I was
with
a-
a hard commitment for the 10 million.
If I was a trustee of the library, I would be uncomfortable signing a GMP for that amount of money, knowing I don't have the resources.
So that's
no
why
one
they,
did
well, wait,
those.
that has never come up in the building committee.
Yeah.
We haven't heard this from the board president or the executive director. So where are you getting this?
I'm just saying.
Well, no one's told us
Yeah,
that. I don't think
I've
I've
not
ever heard
heard
that
that.
before.
I've not
That
heard
we have
that.
to do this before they'll sign the GMP. In fact, I think it was the opposite. We said
Right.
we need a
Yeah.
GMP. But
Yeah,
Yeah, and we would need we need a signed MOU, which you're willing to hopefully do tomorrow. So that's one of the first documents. We do have all P and Z papers. Those are all signed and posted. We're still waiting on a final GMP. And we're still waiting for an updated cash flow that gives us a sense of when these funds are going to be needed, both in terms of when the grant's going to be paid and best estimates for when they think they would start drawing on the line of credit. So I think all those papers are within the capability of the library to deliver it. They just haven't delivered them. And those weren't part of your due diligence that you did to sign the MOU?
No, the GMP is in your hands. That was a requirement for you.
Yes.
On the other hand, this is also subject to referendum. It's better to get a referendum out of the way early rather than have it months down the
it is
road.
what it is. If they want a referendum, it doesn't matter whether it's October, November, December.
No,
I mean,
They've already-
practically speaking, if I remember when we talked about potential cash flow and the potential max draw on this, and we intentionally put a much higher number for the max draw because just in case, right? And Linda, would we operate in terms of any draws the library might require under this in a similar way that we do when we do any bonding project? We use the cash we have and then we reimburse ourselves. So,
Provided the appropriation is in place.
right,
Then
okay,
we would be able to use existing cash
Yeah.
with the appropriation in place.
right. And
Without an appropriation in place.
you can't do that. Okay, so the appropriation is, the having the appropriation in place gives us flexibility to do that.
Yes.
Right? Okay,
There's one meeting.
so, all right, I'm sorry. And then can anybody, or maybe Chris or Neil, in terms of when the first draw, potentially assuming, I know the library's hoping to not even have to draw on this. I think we're like way over a year away in terms of potentially drawing on this. Neil and Chris, am I right in that?
about, yeah.
Right? So, I'm personally not uncomfortable with this because look yes, it's our nonprofit library, but yes, it's our town library. And we have
That's
a pretty big sense through the town that we're in there with them. And the reason we've discussed using this more cost-effective financing, it's helped everybody. And we already committed 10 million. I think this project's going forward. So I understand the progression, but I also understand the goodwill nature of saying, yeah, we said we'd give you a loan and max 13. We pretty much understand it's never going to go that high. But I'm just less on a legal perspective. but
No.
more
And I'm
just a life
saying
perspective.
everything you said is true and everything that you said is embodied in the first MOU.
Mhm.
and it's there. And to me,
So that's
we
not-
should be engaging with them and discussing a loan document, and we would vet that at this committee. We'd take a look at it and said, yeah, that looks good. And we agree to that contract, and here's our appropriation. And it would have had the benefit of comments from the library and their council, and we'd look at it and all be fine, be conditions to drawing, be a total amount. We might even have a better sense of timing and amounts. And it just kind of felt like, well, okay, so this is coming in now, but where's all those other things? And then, again, for someone that's just kind of coming and looking at this, I'm only finding out the MOU hasn't yet been fully signed and delivered, and we're not sure what the GMP is and all the rest of it. Well, I think we're all fully backing this project, but this just seemed to me to be premature. Now, I can be convinced otherwise, but it just kind of struck me as, well, where's all the other stuff and where did it line up?
Yeah, Bob, to me, it's more, I mean, we've approved it. It comes down to market timing. I mean, to authorize this bond resolution now gives us the flexibility to go to market. I don't think we think bonds market's going to move, in the short term. I guess maybe the amount could change. So that's would be a reason to put it off. I had a question just on the language, not to get too in the weeds, but bonds will be issued on a taxable basis. Why is that? The library is is a tax exempt organization. The town issues, tax exempt. I'm just curious why these bonds are taxable and what the interest differential that we would expect by doing taxable bonds versus our usual non-taxable.
Under the current market, the tax, and I don't have the exact numbers, but the tax differential right now is very, it's not a whole lot. But the reason that these are considered taxable versus the construction is because they're not for the construction. We are providing financing for the library, and in the opinion of the bond council, that these would not qualify to be non-taxable bonds.
But when we borrow for the town itself, we're non-taxable, correct? I mean,
But it's the purpose.
It just
That's
seems,
a governmental purpose. That's a governmental purpose. We're financing receivables here for pledges.
but if we just use the general fund and
I don't get that.
But you're right. If you want
one
to
money's
issue
fungible,
general-
but I guess it
We're
would be
making
big-
money.
That would be a big fund. if we
Well,
Just
Well, we
borrowed
could,
for
well,
the
we
general
could
account.
use, I mean, as a practical matter, the library is going to need money on an ongoing monthly basis.
Right.
So after we have fully funded the capital grant, $10 million, then they'll start needing money on a regular basis from which this line of credit would allow us to fund. When we go out to reimburse ourselves, if we go out to reimburse ourselves, is up to us.
Yeah.
The disbursement to library is kind of up to their contract obligations and the
Yeah.
work progress. So they're somewhat of a different timing, but we have the general fund to do that through. So if we have to fund 1 or 2 months to general fund, and then we go and do a bond offering, reimburse ourselves, all that is permitted, right?
Correct. That's how
Okay.
that's how we.
So that's how it would work as a practical
And it
matter.
wouldn't be for the full 13, because the 13 is the.
I
same
suppose if
level.
rates were real, we thought rates were really rock bottom and you wanted to build up a balance in advance, you could, but why pay interest on funds that aren't drawn?
So,
Remember, they said
Go ahead.
they didn't anticipate a draw until next September.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, we
The
were-
maximum they anticipate at outstanding any time is $7 million.
That's right.
That's if things go as planned.
Mhm.
If the world goes sideways,
Mhm.
they could need more money.
Mhm.
Once they sign the GMP, they got to pay.
So what I'm hearing is we still don't have a GMP. You don't have it, Chris.
I do not have it.
That was a prerequisite for much of this progress. And I think we were okay because it was going along, but it isn't there. The money's not needed
But
and we don't have a loan
But
document.
an advance under the MOU requires the GMP to be in place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
so even,
so it's not-
even the capital grant requires a GMP.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
I know.
So,
My point is, is there any reason we shouldn't table this for 1 month and let some of these things just get sorted out?
Yeah, I think there is. I think this has been a very contentious process. And to send a message that the Board of Finance is now delaying this $13 million bond authorization, that could send a bad signal into the town.
yeah.
And it
don't know.
doesn't, it won't hurt us
That's-
if we
that's-
authorize
That's
this.
fair, except that there were 3 conditions for this board to approve $10 million. P and Z approval, didn't have it. The GMP still don't have it. And a signed MOU we got today. So we've gone way over the line to support this program, in my humble opinion. And we're ready to do this, except that we still don't have those items and we don't have a loan document.
But
So
we
I just don't
can't-
see why rush this for 1 month.
We wouldn't get, I don't see any way that, I don't see a downside by approving this tonight. Like, how will the town potentially get hurt if we approve this? Because if the GMP isn't in hand, they can't pull the money anyway. So there's no risk on our side if we.
And we should get a loan
approve it tonight.
document done within the next month.
The only risk is the sense that we're continuing to make money available for something that is still not really nailed just down yet, for the sake of what? They may not need this for a year.
You're just authorizing it.
Yeah, I understand what we're doing, but there's a principle to this too, right? I mean, it's a dialogue and a discussion, and we've really worked hard to make this work. I think the board would argue that we.
Oh, yeah.
Just to, when would we, in an ideal world, go to market? Let's just assume that everything plays out as we expect. When would you want to go to
Bob,
market?
we go to market once a year for $10 million or $20 million. So we're going to go in
We're
November.
going in November for the first 10 million together with some other capital projects. For this, we wouldn't include it in that because we don't have any drawdown on this. So this would be probably something we'd go out, if we were to go out maybe in August or a year from, about August.
I mean,
So you're not even going to market for a year for this. You're
Right.
going to market
So
for
that's another
everything.
point.
else.
For the
Yeah,
grant
That's
money.
right.
I presume you're going to market
For the grant.
for the grant
November.
on the basis that all those documents have been signed and received.
We should have those before we go out.
Yes.
Otherwise, we
So
won't.
We'll have
I'm sorry, is there an issue, Linda, with these bonds not being fungible because of Bob's point? In other words, these bonds for this aspect would be taxable. And so it's not like, well, if we issued a little too much, you see my point?
No, and because these are taxable, there wouldn't be, if they're tax exempt, there would be the issue of arbitrage. Are you
Right.
paying interest?
Right.
The fact that they're taxable, arbitrage is on the table. So
I
it
see.
would not be an arbitrage issue. If we were
Okay.
to issue them, if we over issued, we could use them for something else.
Right,
But there wouldn't be any tax issues with these because they're taxable.
right.
And when you do it all together, you save issuance costs and all that stuff. So there'd be a chunk of it that's tax exempt New Canaan and a chunk that's taxable. And with one overall bonding expense associated with it.
And the offering statement would, for example, in November, it's going to say $10 million for the library project.
Hmm.
And those will be 20-year bonds because they're
Right.
long-term capital.
Right.
Next summer, when we do $5 million or $4 million for the loan,
Hmm.
we would say loan for 5-year
Yep.
notes.
Yep.
And that would be specified in the,
Victor, tell me one more time why you think it's important to do it tonight.
Number one, there's no downside to the town. There's no risk. And number two, you're putting wind in the sails of the 1913 people. They're going to get, excited about the fact that the Board of Finance is not approving this $13 million bond issuance.
I disagree on.
No,
the-
I don't think
with the
it- I don't think
preservation.
it's
So They were not
No.
a party to the attempt to have a referendum. The referendum fell far short of what was needed to go to with the town council for setting a date. So I just don't see that this is just us doing our job the way we're supposed to do it and getting the paperwork that we need.
Remember, we're not supportive of this. I think we're just saying we need a few more things done before we can vote on it. I think that's all we're saying. I think.
Yeah, quite the
we're wildly
contrary.
sup-
I think that,
the idea.
Well, the MOU that we're going to sign and deliver says
Yeah, that's it, Victor.
everything
That's
that's
it.
here. Right.
Yeah.
And so, right, I remain perfectly supportive of the project.
Neil, do you have a question? Sorry.
well, just hold on here. Okay. I think that we could wait a month if we had to. I mean, it's not going to be that big a deal. I do want to correct the impression that there's some contentious relationships here. That's just regular negotiating. And, we are the town. We are the library of the town. And if anything goes wrong or anything, guess who pays?
Yeah.
And so, all these things, we should try to get them good, but I don't know why there's such a negative flavor, in terms of things not being done. We've gone a lot further than that. If you were going to the building committee meetings every week, you'd feel a sense of enlightenment. The fog is lifted and everyone's working to get to these things. So I want to make sure that we correct that impression.
No, thank
Yeah.
Okay.
But if people feel better, waiting a month to answer any particular questions.
It's just a process and hygiene point, really. Just let's do we do it right. The 30 days won't really mean it. Just to your point, doing it now might not mean anything. Well, 30 days isn't because we know we're so supportive of this. We just have to get
Right.
Is that okay, Neil?
Yep.
So,
Go
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Linda, I just, for my own edification, what was bond council's determination that these were taxable? What was the purpose that generated that conclusion?
The use of this was essentially financing, gap financing for the library, and the donations were coming in, and that was going to be the repayment source, because these were going to be repaid back to the town. So it wasn't a grant that's going towards construction. Hypothetically, if we were to issue 6 million and all 6 million was paid back in donations, we were basically just financing, short-term financing the gap of the donations and contributions. And that's why she determined that these would be taxable as opposed to not taxable.
It doesn't make a difference really, because we're gonna borrow under
Yeah.
1% and the library's gonna pay the rate plus the margin. So from our point of view,
That's
it doesn't matter.
correct, yeah, but
It's a good deal.
that's just different than anything I've seen.
And
Okay.
do we, is our council preparing a loan agreement?
Not yet, but that's, now that we've got the due diligence done, we can work on the
That
loan.
should
Okay.
be in hand too.
Can't do everything at once.
No, right. Okay.
With
Okay.
respect to the loan documents, though, I think that maybe it should be, the preparation loan document would be best overseen by the Board of Finance.
Mhm.
I'm not
And
sure I
when are
agree
we,
with that.
when are we getting that?
No, it hasn't been drafted yet.
I'll consult with Neil.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so we
So
should have that too.
I think that's really important point Chris has in terms of being it. We are the finance people. We understand how the deals in the market work. And it's really important to keep a standard way of looking at them. We've seen some rough documents, and we're ready to go for this. We can get this done quickly. But we should control it.
So maybe what we could do in order to show good
Advisors
faith
on
is start working on the loan agreement. Obviously, with Linda's office, maybe the three of us that were on the negotiations for the
I think we probably should.
the grant, the MOU,
Even though it might not be.
and whatever bond council.
The town attorney should do this.
Yeah.
It's an executive function, not a Board of Finance function, but your advice is welcome.
Well,
So,
that's
but let's
what
get
I
it done by
prefer.
November.
I don't know, that's,
Yeah.
I don't think it should be an executive function. I think it should be a Board of Finance.
Yeah, I do
Okay.
too. I agree with that.
Well,
Okay, the charter vests the executive.
Get that
with
straight.
responsibility. So
okay.
we'll get it done. All your advice is welcome.
I'd like to just, unless there's any real objection, suggest that we just table this approval till November's meeting. Looking at you, I just want to make sure you're okay. Okay.
Can I ask just one last question? So I just want to, the back and forth with the MOU is completely done. You got certified, whatever you need from,
I would have signed the MOU if they completed their due diligence, right? They just completed it.
okay, so no, I'm just saying, so where you are now, you're ready to sign it.
Yes.
Okay, just because those of us not involved with the library in and out didn't know the status. So that's good. And the reason I say that is because as Tom said, all of the loan provisions are embedded in that MOU.
Sure.
So no, and so that
That's
kind of,
right.
it that kind of makes us be able to say pushing off 1 month. It's all in there.
Yeah.
So we just get the details.
And
Okay.
Kevin, the other, one thing I want to ask you is by not approving this tonight, that has no impact on the shovel in the ground timing.
No,
correct?
but on the other hand, I'll go on record. I think it's a mistake to delay because it does show lack of confidence. I mean, they want to know their creditors there. So.
Oh,
I
I think
appreciate
that's a
that.
push. but,
That's
yeah.
important. Well, I think we've worked very hard on behalf of this program to make this happen. And as of 6 o'clock today, we still didn't have a GMP and we don't have a loan agreement for this. I don't think it's out of line to just say, let's table this now. Appreciate your comments and duly noted, but I think they know we have the confidence. So if we could do that, let's, I think we need a motion to table this, or do we not? I'm not exactly sure.
I'm not sure. Should we do it just to be safe? I don't know.
Okay,
I'm not sure.
so you need a motion to
Table,
table
6,
item
yeah.
6 on the agenda until next month.
Until our November meeting this year.
Yeah, so
Okay.
moved.
And can you just, I'm sorry, just can you tell me the reason we're giving is we are tabling it because
We don't have the loan well, we don't have all the final documents.
we don't have all the final documents?
Is that,
I think that the
Okay.
original question that was raised was we do not have a GMP. Therefore, it's difficult to do the actual calculations on what may or may not be needed. Having a GMP, if you recall, was one of the preconditions for approving anything 6 months ago. Okay, so I think what we're trying to say is let's just have the contract, let's have a loan document, let's understand what we're doing, and then we can approve something that we do support, but we need to do the details. I think that's the summary, Neil.
Okay. And so if they came with a GMP tomorrow, they said there's a variation of maybe 5%, but we're almost there, you know, what do you say?
Yeah, we'll approve it in November. This is for money, $3 million that they may need a year from now. And in a loan, a bond that we're not even going to put out to market until August of next year. It
Maybe.
just feels let's just get the ducks in a row and get the job done and we'll approve this. So, sorry, that's the summary I can give.
will we
I
have the
could go either
loan
way.
document next month as well? Will we have that ready, Kevin?
We
or-
can, yeah.
I
Yeah, we
think we
could, yeah.
should. I think we should have everything and
Oh, we can vote on this in
Yeah.
December if we don't. It's okay.
whatever. But I
But no,
think-
Judy, honestly, this only says subject to a loan document.
I know,
So-
but if we're getting crazy, we're not going to do it again.
No, but I mean, the resolution for this is just that we're saying we are willing to issue up to $13 million in bonds. We don't think we'll need more than 7 at a max,
Right.
subject to loan documents. So I don't think we need the loan documents. That's
All right.
really
No.
nitty
Okay.
gritty.
Kevin
Okay,
said
this was
they
this
were
was the
prepared.
original
Okay.
point that was made. I was just trying to answer Neil's question.
The thought was that efforts to complete the loan document would be a further reflection of our willingness and commitment to the project. Right?
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Well, okay, so what are we gonna do? You have a vote on
We
it?
have a motion. I don't have a second. I have a motion from Tom to table this until the November meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll move.
Judy? Okay. All in favor of tabling this to the November meeting? Aye. Opposed? Well, Amy, you kind of got to pick one of the.
I know. I
You could
know.
abstain, I guess.
You can
Yeah.
abstain if you're not.
Okay, motion moved.
All right.
Okay.
So now we should try to clarify how we're going
Neil, how'd you do?
loan agreement.
If it's not unanimous, you're supposed to poll people under these new rules.
Okay.
So,
oh,
You're supposed to what?
It can be. It's fine.
I thought it was,
It's
and
fine.
I
It's
thought
fine.
Neil
It
was
doesn't- it's
okay with
fine.
it, but I
It's fine.
didn't. Remember, Tom didn't, it's an
Wait a minute, you want
alternate.
to back it up?
No,
Are you,
I wasn't seated tonight.
That's right,
It
exactly.
doesn't really matter, but I just get it done.
Go ahead, Neil.
No, I'm good.
Okay,
What?
right. Okay,
So can we clarify where we stand on the loan agreement?
that was what
I
I,
think that, again, GMP. That was the prerequisite, not a loan agreement. We don't have it. We need it.
yeah, I think what Chris was
The
saying. just-
loan agreement- This is subject to a loan agreement. If you're okay with that.
I think what Chris is saying, the manner in which the loan agreement is prepared and which we engage
Yeah.
with the library and their lawyers.
Yeah.
And I think Kevin said he was going to call Doug, I forget Doug's last name, but Doug was the lawyer who was helping with a lot of these things when we were dealing with the initial MOU that largely dealt with the grant. And so I think what Chris is saying is that maybe the board of finance should be a little bit more vigorously in the early stages to make sure that there's not a lot of last minute tinkering. Is that kind of?
Can I just suggest in this case,
Yep.
I'm sorry, I thought your question was different. I thought,
No,
what do
no.
we need to have for November?
No, this
Um,
is where do
Could
we?
I ask that you and Neil work with the first selectman and sort that out?
And Tom. And Tom.
And Tom, yeah, that would be how, because I honestly don't know, and we could debate it, but I think we ought to look at whose roles and responsibilities and what our role is and what Neil can do and you and so forth. So if you could do that, I think that would be the best thing to have done, and
That's
that
a
would
good-
report out in November.
It's a
Okay.
good idea. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Okay, thank you all for that. Item 7. Chris Labrie and Michael Chen and I are doing the guidance this year.
Yes.
Does anyone else want to raise their hand? Yeah.
How much do you want?
Item 8. Item 8. We'll be doing, so our goal is to, have guidance done for our November meeting. That would be our objective. So
Yes.
if anyone really wants to dive into that, they can let me know. Okay. Now, Maria and Michael aren't here. Amy, you okay doing just the ARPA update, where we
Sure.
are, the meetings that have happened, and any preliminary thoughts?
Sure. Our little subcommittee from the Board of Finance met with I think it's called subcommittee at Town Council. And we had an initial meeting of just the group and discussed how to approach looking at using the ARPA money. And so the joint group got together and, mostly run from Town Council with a lot of input from us. Just the most important thing is going through parameters first. And they're working on developing a set of parameters in terms of what would be the objectives and how you disperse the funds. So that was kind of the first step with the parameters. And some of the features of it are, we should try to make sure it benefits the town. We want to do within the spirit of which the funds were made available to towns, focusing on, folks who were impacted by COVID and the development aspects that were built into suggested uses of the funds. Of course, we know we can reimburse ourselves for lost revenues, et cetera. And so the parameters are just continuing to be developed, including things like it's a one-time thing. So it's capital. We're not going to get into do operating expenses. We don't want to do seed money for projects that need to have other seed money. If we're looking at capital, certainly want to fund capital that is in the spirit of the money being given, but it should be capital we've already identified. So maybe we can move it forward. And then, resiliency for the town, economic development, et cetera. So they're working and they've had 2 meetings, or certainly 1 meeting for input from people in the town, taking down people's suggested ways of using it. And so I think that where the group of town council is trying to, within the parameters that they've laid out, then developing buckets for where funds could be used generally in terms of potentially nonprofits who have been directly impacted by COVID, infrastructure that is in the spirit of the funds being allocated, health and community, business and economic vitality, and government services. So they're now proposing in those buckets to list kind of where you might expend the money. And one thing that folks, especially from town council, are concerned with is if funds are to go back into the general fund, they would like them to be targeted for specific purposes, which I think any of us would be fine with. So I think they're going to work on kind of nailing down the potential list of projects. It could be, some of the funds they might recommend being dedicated to, I guess I'll use bonus pay or battle pay, but that'll be something that's coming forward. So I think we're moving pretty well. And I think part of the goal is too to say, this is the amount of money we're going to have. Let's just figure out how we're going to spend it and not come back, 6 months, 12 months and address it further, but also be able to say, this one-time money we got once, and we want to be able to say we know where we spent it and we spent it well.
We're getting the questions for Amy, comments?
One of the pieces of feedback that I got was that, and I've been talking to people in town about the ARPA funds, that it's preferable that we spend it on COVID-related things. And one of the suggestions was ventilation. So upgrading HVAC systems in public buildings so that if a future pandemic breaks out, we will have built up our ventilation infrastructure to help combat that.
Yeah, and I think the thing is, again, we want to look at capital programs that are in, and we have a lot of capital programs in the 5-year capital plan that are definitely, with the health and safety and stuff. Part of it is we don't want to invent projects to do. We have plenty to do as well. I mean, you can go on forever, but it's certainly information that you feel free to send it over to Grisecki.
What's the headline number again? I forget how much we're expecting.
5.8.
6 million, 6 million.
Pardon me?
For some reason, this 5.8 million has floated around 6 million.
It's a 5.86, yep. So,
Just a comment. I'm pretty sure, because I have asked this question for over a year, we have upgraded the ventilation systems. You have, we have, correct? The schools have, have we not done that everywhere?
Where would you do that?
Investing in ventilation at the in gyms and the large spaces of the elementary school, the high school's bridge.
Yeah, I thought we had. Yeah, just if people ask you that.
So Amy, is there a deadline, either self-imposed or not? In other words, is there a date by which this working group is just going to say, here we are, this is what we decided, these are our recommendations?
I can't say yes. I think it makes sense to just go, look, there are a huge amount of needs in the town. So, and we could identify 2 and 3 times as much. So let's just get it and we move forward. And then realizing also with the town, we are fortunate. We have a really great budget process. We have a very stringent capital budgeting plan. And, you know, if it's not paid from ARPA funds, if it's important, we'll pay for it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we're fortunate.
We've also done a lot, not knowing any of this was coming. You did solar, you did gas, we did a lot of things that you could argue would be things. Just to be clear on the numbers, it's 3 million this year, 3 million in June of next year?
All within this fiscal year. We already have 3.
3 million last year, 3 million this year by June 30.
Next June, well, June, you say this year, fiscal year. And then the dollars do need to be spent in a window though, right?
Within the
3
year.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Okay,
within a
all
year, each one.
The whole
Yeah.
thing in 2024, does the first tranche have to be
First
spent?
is,
Spent or committed.
Committed, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so
Yeah,
there's
we'll have no
kind of a
trouble doing
deadline,
that.
No trouble, yeah,
We're not.
exactly. I would hope so.
So,
Amy, I have a question for the not-for-profits. Obviously, there's a lot of good not-for-profits in this town. How is this group going to decide which ones, are the ones we want to fund? Are they going to make proposals? Are they going to make a pitch? How's that going to happen?
well, a number of them have made pitches, right? And I think one of the, Neil, mute baby.
Big knuckle.
You're muted now.
I think some of the parameters that will be tried to be employed when deciding, of the nonprofits, that whatever's put forth is fully vetted, explainable, not just, hey, if you give us this money, we can do this, but it's a one-time thing. It's for capital, right? And we want to try to benefit all parts of the community, so you might be involved in a daycare, but you might want to also do something for, the elderly population as well. But
Is it a vote though? Will it be like 2-1 that the schools get the money or something?
I think it's going to be set up as, the different buckets by purposes and then suggested uses of these. Now, my guess is that it'll be greater than 6 million, right? And then at some point, people have to make the decision of, okay, this will be ARPA funds or this won't be.
And does it come to the selectmen? What's the process for that?
So
next step? Yeah.
Yeah. and-
John Engel made a misstatement when he said that our audit committee suggested it has to be in accordance with the charter budget process. It's our auditors who said we have to follow the charter. Only the town board of selectmen or the board of finance can initiate a special appropriation.
Mhm.
Town council cannot. So this is unusual because these are not tax dollars.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we want to be sure we send things to them that we think they'll approve,
Mhm.
as opposed to have them
Yeah.
reject things.
Okay.
So
Okay.
so
Right.
we will initiate the process at the Board of Selectmen based upon things that we hear the town council is willing to approve. The other thing, I don't think we necessarily have to approve, come up with a grand scheme in 2 months. We might want to go 6 months to come up with a total spending plan, but
Well, but I would say, I know that, the selectmen have put forth some initial talking
Right.
points. And I think what's an interesting approach is that, if the town council puts together a list, right? You can bring to you, the selectmen, if the selectmen want to put it in, fine. If they don't, fine. But again, if we have that list from town council, when it comes to Board of Finance, we are able to put things in.
Sure.
So I would think from Board of Finance position, we might want to say, okay, this is what we kind of think is a good idea from a financial perspective and hearing people's positions and pulling in. And perhaps we put in, recommend you spend, there's a number of promises and it's 7 million and then it goes to town council and then.
The only
they put it
qualification I
out.
put on that is this is an appointed body, not an elected body. And you folks are responsible for efficient use of tax dollars. These are not New Canaan tax dollars. So I think, the elected bodies should really have the focus here on what, because I think there is a sense these funds should be spent.
Yep.
And so.
Yeah, I don't think any of it's just free. I think it's just way for everybody to get their prioritized projects together and then we'll decide. Right?
So will we be passing on this or it will not come back to the Board of
No,
Finance?
it'll go through the appropriation process. Either we or you will.
All right, that's what I had down. But you just said that it wasn't a Board of Finance initiative. So, all right.
I think what you were saying is the prioritization ought to happen with
As
our
is,
input, but
the
driven
normal.
by more of on the selectmen's office and the town council. And then we'll
Okay.
go through a appropriation process as we would normally do.
Right.
And that's when we'll cut it.
Right.
Kidding.
Another way to say it too is-
I just because I think town council maybe more ability to express their opinions to the selectman's office and then come up this way.
Fine. Okay. Okay. Anything else? Amy?
Nope.
Okay. Do we want an update on this in November or?
I can quickly,
Take your lead on that.
on PD.
I got a PV.
That's
might have
ARPA.
missed that
That's
one.
ARPA.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah,
Bob,
I think we'll come back, right?
Okay.
We'll
Yeah,
get back.
keep us- we'd like to be-
Let's get moving on this one.
Just like to be part of the process to know when you need us to do what we need to do. Okay. Linda, you want to come back on a financial update?
So I did send, you do have this on your tablets, the year-to-date revenues and expenditures. I also provided an update of tax collections, where we are year-to-date compared to the same period for 2 of the past years. So overall taxes, as of October 1, we're at 76.5 million of a budget of 140 million, which is about 55%, which is where we would be. That is a bit more than the 75.4 this period last year and is consistently higher than this period for the past 2 years. So we're well on track as far as tax revenues are concerned. On the expenditure sides, we are where we anticipate we would be 2-3 months into the year. You will see that on the expenditure side, what you heard Dr. Keating make reference to the underspend on the Board of Ed. If you look at that 21 actual, you'll see that number there. These are obviously unaudited numbers for now, but there was an underspend on the Board of Ed of about 1.3 million, which is going back into the general fund, adding to the fund balance this year. And then on the revenue side, I talked about the tax collections. You recall that this year we reinstated the parking, the permit fees and so forth. And year to date on the parking permits, we are at 376, to about 33% of the budget revenue, which compares to the 315 for the entire full year last year.
Right.
And so that is, we're seeing those numbers grow. And so I think we will probably be close to that $1.1 million budget, which is less than the prior year revised, but it is a lot more than what we had anticipated before. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight are the conveyance fees. They're still tracking ahead. Right now, year to date, we're at just over 800,000, which is 80% of the 1.1 million that we had budgeted this year, 3 months into the year. Last year, total was 2.8 million. It seems like we are on track to exceed budget for this year. And as we saw last year, where it made up for any of the other shortfalls, I believe conveyance fees will do the same this year.
So just help me with that one. So we had the last year actual 2.852
Correct.
against a budget of 1.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. We approved 1-1
Correct.
and we've already collected the 885. Okay, wow, that's, is that on track for, let me think about that. So that's
No, that's
actually
ahead.
even ahead of track for last year.
Right. So that's why I believe we'll far exceed the 1-1 that was
I would say
budgeted.
so. Okay, part of our guidance now. Chris, I'm
Are
looking at
we
you. We got to do flat taxes one more year.
are we going to exceed the 2.8? That's the question.
Who knows?
I can do some addition, I can look at where we were year to date last year. We'd be close. I don't think we'll get to 2.
I bet you were ahead. Because think about a year ago, still, they were in the, but yeah, it started to go off in the winter.
And,
Okay.
and Linda, what line was the Board of Ed return?
Where
It
is that?
is on the expenditure page. There's a section that says BOE operating budget, where you have the BOE operations.
Yeah.
Service transfer. So you can see that 79.6 to 81.
Oh, yes, okay, right.
So that's where you see that.
So our total town was 92.8 plus Board of, right? Board of Ed was 92.8. We ended up with 91.8
Correct.
because of the transfer from the other one. Okay. Okay.
And that's somewhat skewed because recall, we did the special appropriation on the internal service. So you'll see that the internal service is higher than the budget initially. We did the special appropriation. So if you just look at the operations where there wasn't the appropriation, that's where the underspend came in.
Okay.
So what is it? Item to item as opposed to what's on the operating? Is it about the same? If you
No,
include that?
91, about $1 million under even with the special appropriation.
Okay.
Those are the highlights. I don't have anything else on that. It's still early in the year.
Yep.
But even building permits are running ahead,
They are.
Oh, yeah.
which I guess you'd expect for the other. Anything not so. Okay.
It's tearing up what they just.
Well, what's
paid too
happening with
much
parking?
for.
With parking?
Yeah.
Parking is the reinstatement of the, because you recall last year, there was a freeze on the permits, and so we started issuing, people are buying those permits again. Those are coming in, and those are seasonal. Because we send those bills out in May. This year we delayed because we sent the bills out in September, so we'll probably see more in the current fiscal year as opposed to being split over 2 years. So that's part of that.
Are we confident on that budget number?
We were in May.
That was George's number, if I remember.
But we're getting close.
Yes,
Right?
that darn George.
We've done our part in our family. We've contributed.
There we go.
Did you want to go through this at all?
Well,
Just
I
as
kind of
it,
ran through those numbers.
Yeah,
That was the
okay,
yearly taxes. Where we were.
That's.
anything else? Any questions for Linda? That's a good update.
We're meeting with the audit committee tomorrow, and this year's audit is on track. And so Joe, our auditor, will be presenting tomorrow morning, and we should have audited financials, draft audit financials by November with final financial stuff.
Sounds good.
Kevin says we did that, Diane. Staff, she's great.
Excellent.
Quick study, and she knows the organization. And
Congratulations.
we have her with us.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Update first and then.
Okay, next, yeah, Linda, whatever you want to do. You got to come back for a couple other items, but let's go to the police update. So, you want to, so discussion of alternatives, we had a pre-meeting a couple weeks ago. And so do you have a quick update in terms of what's happening?
I'll bring it up.
Bring us up to speed. and
As I did this morning at the
Okay.
Selection Advisory Committee on Buildings and Infrastructure. So as I, 2 weeks ago, when I introduced the subject, I said that tonight we start the process. And I envisioned it was going to be a 2-month process. Now I envision it's going to be a 3-month process. The building committee, Bill Walbert's here tonight, co-chairman. We're not sure who the other co-chair.
I know the feeling.
Congratulations.
Thursday, the building committee has a meeting. They weren't able to meet in September because they didn't have the environmental report back. We now have that, so that the building committee on Thursday will meet to vet the renovate in place or rebuild a new building in place there. And so that they can come forward in November. This is to another joint meeting. To keep things on track, I think the information session should be joint with the town council and the Board of Finance before you start deliberating on your respective pieces of it. So the new information is we had a meeting a week ago with another town about going into a joint partnership on the pistol range. We initiated discussions a year ago on that topic. The other town is going to hire an architect with an unnamed town being us and possibly a third town to build a new pistol range which would be conveniently accessible to the New Canaan Police Force. So that will likely probably mean we're going to begin to take the pistol range out of the equation for either a new building or the renovation in place. On last week, we met with John Engel and Steve Carl to talk about choosing 4 additional locations in addition to the Saks location to consider in more detail. And we've decided to add the South Avenue location between the high school and Saks, the Lumberyard parking lot, the Locust parking lot, and the leaf pile in Waveney Park. So we will have Jukunsky Humes take another 3 weeks or so to come back with more detailed site plans for those locations and costs. Obviously, the parking lot locations will be considerably higher cost because they'll require parking structures. And then finally, we have a discussion going on about senior housing. If we should build a new building elsewhere, the current building could be used for senior housing. And if we have a $6 million figure, which really is the delta between renovating in place and building new, at least $6 million, we ought to consider that option if we're going to build new at another location. So that's kind of my update. Amy, you've participated in today's meeting and
I did. And the earlier police department buildings. Look, my personal opinion is when you're doing a project that's this big, it makes all the sense in the world to look at every option, which is, I think, part of this process is. I will say, and having been following this for a number of years, I think the other 4 locations that will be looked at, I think they will be much more expensive and have a lot of challenges with them.
actually 2 of them should be the same cost as Saks.
Well, except one is at the leaf pile and one is between the
Same
schools,
cost.
right?
Same
Which has the same issues of location and that the community has been pretty vocal about so far. So our goal is to make sure we get a police department renovated in a more appropriate space for our police force to work in the most expeditious manner as possible. And, time is money. And I think the work that we've done in the police building committee, we've really tried to drill down. And it's very important when you're renovating a place. We know it's not going to be perfect because you're not building a brand new police department. It's a little bit more space, but we have kept saying, does this meet your needs? Does this get you what you need? And I think the chief said at least 98% of it. And is this a opportunity to build a building that's in place and will be renovated as new in a 50-year building? That's very important to us. So we've really tried to drill down on that, and we'll continue to do that. And right now, the numbers seem to favor, renovating the existing building, and it has a lot less variables than any of the other processes, which means it can move forward in a more expeditious way, not only for the police to get a building that is up to speed and appropriate place for them to be, but also we can get this done in a reasonable period of time. I think we're going to face a lot of opposition trying to move it, especially to open space. That is pretty cherished open space.
So you just want to make sure I understand that you're both saying it's another month or so before those options will have been
Early.
gone through, looked at.
Well, the trouble is too, we have a town council that's in transition with membership. So we probably can't have a meeting until the town council is seated in mid-November.
Well, I mean, the current town council can work on it, could they not?
Well, we're not gonna have the information until the first week of November, so I just think given that transition, we probably ought to,
Like a week.
for the sake of a week, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we might have options in a month to evaluate and, okay.
Well, and Bill, correct me if I'm off, but from the building department or the police building committee, has this been pared down just to consider the current location? We're gonna have a meeting on Thursday, really, if you want to, really drill down. And I think from our position, we'll probably be ready to say, we think this is the best option on the current space.
Right, we've looked at this space, right, for
Yeah.
building new and for renovation. You've seen what the work that Brian, the architect, has done already. You're well aware that, this building has been poked and prodded for a number of years to see what it can and can't do. And so that's some of the good news in a renovation discussion, because hey, let's face it, you renovate, you are likely to have a surprise or two, but that will probably be minimized a little bit. The space itself and the where it sits in the general community obviously has been looked at. And as far as looking at other spots, that's I think that's well and appropriate. If we know anything, doubt equals delay. We don't want doubt. We don't want delay. I think as a police committee, what we could all agree on, and we have a pretty much consensus of thought, and we haven't voted on anything, so I don't want to imply that. But what we all agree on is there's consensus in the town that the police station is in the batter's box, if you will. We use baseball terminology because you have 3 elimination games tonight. So we're in the batter's box. We don't want to swing and miss, right? We don't want to swing and miss. We want to deliver a project to the people, to the police force, and so we want to make sure that we can come up with something that the community agrees with, and that all you town bodies can agree with, and then hopefully deliver you a great police station, whether it's renovated, whether it's new, whether it's the current spot, whether it's a different spot. That's really what we want to accomplish. But we want to do it now because, let's face it, there is consensus. We're all here because there's consensus that the police station is in need of being done something to, and that it's in the batter's box. So.
Yeah, I think everyone would agree. It's time.
Like building a new library, everyone agrees we need.
Everyone
yeah.
agrees, exactly that. Okay.
So Bill, just a question. So by saying that you're looking at the current site and other sites is your committee now, is there only one committee?
They have a project once the town bodies decide what the project is.
Yes. So we have.
They're gonna recommend to the town bodies whether renovation works or whether, we want to build a new building at the location.
But what about this initiative for other locations?
That's being handled by the town employees and the.
Well, really the architects. This was presented as an
So
architect.
there's a separate committee for still?
No, it's
separate
not a committee,
for
the
that?
architect. We hired 2 architects to make recommendations.
But shouldn't they be reporting the same person?
No, because we
Yes.
don't have a project yet.
They should have.
We don't have a project yet.
This
They're
seems
doing
very
site
inefficient.
location. You're just doing-
Yeah.
You're doing location analysis. It's not,
Right,
you're not building
right,
anything.
right.
I mean,
Right.
Right, but
Okay.
technically, once a project has been chosen, then we're the guys that are meeting
Right.
with our owner's rep, with the building
Right,
project manager and everything else to decide on.
Yeah, well, from
Neil wants
you
to.
talk about
Neil wants to get in.
consensus, there's certainly a consensus that the site that's been proposed as an alternative by almost everyone in this town is certainly very negative.
Yes.
So my,
Nobody wants a cop station next to Sac School.
Neil, did you have a question?
I have a question, yeah.
Fire away.
How do you factor in public sentiment? You're gonna look at all kinds of ratios and all kinds of, matrix comparisons, but public sentiment, it's not dollars. It's just a factor, right? How will you factor that in? Since in this case, I think most of us have never seen so much interest in anything in terms of voting on the site and that sort of thing. I'm just worried about how you make it a formula. You got the Saks Field, but then what about the other sites? Do people get points?
Neil, who's that question to? Because that, the question of additional site got taken away from the committee it was initially done. So that's not the way it has been pared down, we're just supposed to talk
But
about.
Amy, the reason we did that was because it was going to be a 3-month work project, right? In order to get that work, we expedited the process by having 2 concurrent things. We wouldn't be here today. We'd be talking in February if we didn't separate the 2, right? Because
Well,
Right.
but this- with the choice, depending on what you choose, you might still be here in February because the more controversial site, the longer the
Right.
debate will
The
go on.
more you consider, the more that's.
I think, question or and comment is really to the town governing bodies, right? To the selectman's office, the town council, and the Board of Finance. I think obviously you guys take that into account. The building committee isn't we're not the 6 or 7 people that are going to decide what is built. We are going to take what you guys decide should be built and deliver it.
I'm talking to anyone who is forming the criteria. You do whatever body takes it, can take it. I'll leave that to Kevin. But
Right
I-
now, we have, I'm sorry, Neil. Go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, you haven't done.
No, look, I don't think we have enough facts yet, so this is silly almost. Let's just get all the facts on the table, costs, locations, impacts, and so forth. But right now, the most expensive location, or one of them, is also the least desirable. So it's not that hard to think about why the least cost, option is one of them, one that makes it's a lot easier to it's the least disruptive, if you will. So anyway, you have a process, you're getting more sites for better or for worse, right or wrong. I have to say, though, there's nothing wrong with evaluating sites.
No.
If we didn't evaluate, as
Yeah.
Amy said, can you imagine if we just started to renovate, people go, hang on a minute, why didn't we evaluate this? This is going to cost twice. So,
Doubt equals delay. You're
darn-
exactly right.
it's just, let's get everything on the
right.
table. And
Yeah.
I think there's got to be a little bit of trust in the process that once we start to see the facts and we evaluate things, this board, the selectmen's and the town council.
But Todd, why did the elected and appointed boards have no role in that process of deciding, are these 4 sites the right 4 sites? And
Which is-
and wait
I
a
think
minute,
you just
it's being
hired
done
someone
by-
to do
it's
it.
being done by
the
town.
the employees just supported the architects to get them the information they
You
needed.
just hired a-
They did the evaluation.
Well,
not-
town employees. We're not part of that. Why is that? Why did you set it up that you have a committee that only has jurisdiction to look at the existing site? And they have no role whatsoever on the other option?
Because we wanted to expedite the process.
Yeah, I know. And then you get 950 letters coming in saying that, that they don't agree with you.
I did not put forth Saks as a recommendation. The architects, with their analysis of 13 location, said that's the optimal location architecturally, right? If you're concerned about cost and you're concerned about where you want to put a police department, they actually don't think you should hide a police department someplace in town where you don't see it.
Yeah, but now the
Yeah.
town has spoken
So now
very
the
loudly.
town
in
council
response.
wants to hear, 3 or 4 more locations.
I think it's important to get this right.
Right.
There was a study that was, I think, initiated, rightfully so, by the selectman's office to hire an architect to evaluate potential sites. They identified, I think, 13.
13 out of 54 town. The only thing we didn't do after scouring the town for private property, that we could acquire 2.5 or 3 acres. We haven't identified that.
So there
private
was a
property.
skunk, there was a project to evaluate site locations. It wasn't done by the selectman's office. It was done by the people that got hired to do this. They did it independently. They don't live here. They don't care about the baseball field. They just did their job. And their selection was that location. I don't know why this has become so over the top. No one likes the location, me personally, but personal opinion doesn't matter. Well, I've got a job to do in my swim lane on this, with this board, on numbers. And so let them do their job, come up with those options, and we'll see where it all washes out. Honestly, the least cost and least disruptive option is pretty obvious. So I don't know why everyone's get so, but I'm glad you went and did and looked around. Who knows? And if you didn't, you'd have been criticized for looking around. So for not looking around. So I think we have our job to do. This board has to approve the money. You're at the table. So I don't know why anyone feels like they're left out of the process. That's our job and we're at the table to do it. And if you don't like it, you'll speak up and you'll vote against it. And that's your job. And that's fantastic. I encourage that. So I still stay a little confused. You're doing your job. Thank you. When you get the site, you'll do what you need to do. This will be done in a month, right? And you'll have those options. And then we'll start to have a conversation with facts. I think we really let this, somehow let the news just drive this debate, which is unfortunate. So who asked about feedback from the town? 900 people said that's just a terrible idea. We're going to get feedback from the town, and that's great. We should embrace it.
3 reasons put forth on the petition that were: one, this was the first recommendation. Not true. I've made no recommendation.
Right.
That doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter?
Yeah, I mean, you say you can't do it. So it's independent.
I'm just saying, I didn't have any say in them saying that
hired
Saks
people
was
to
the
do it.
optimal location,
Right.
right? It doesn't happen to be my favorite location. So when you put forth the representation that I put forth this recommendation, it's not true. That's one of the premises. Second premise is there's a traffic problem at South Avenue. There is a traffic problem at South Avenue. Police department being there does not add any traffic problem to South Avenue. So, and Michael Galante will explain that to you, right?
I can't.
And then thirdly, a baseball diamond is not protected open space. And if we give them a better baseball diamond elsewhere, baseball actually likes that.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, but there's also a problem, which is that the police department has the habit of running their engines all the time. So
They
you
run
have-
their engines all the time anyway.
Yeah, so you have the prospect
They run their,
of 20 police cruisers running their motors at all times next to a daycare center at the Y with 2, 3, and 4-year-old kids having their recess
They
right
don't-
next to the police
they
station.
don't run their, they don't run their engines when they're at the police station.
Wait, I'm sorry, I just have to remind you again.
The
The least
lowest
expensive,
cost.
lowest cost, least disruptive option is right here.
Yes. And-
So
and-
we can talk
Okay,
about,
I just want to add one other thing on that too. And initially when this worked out, we were looking at multiple locations before it was decided to bifurcate it, which is fine. But I think I think what the town is speaking to in a very loud voice is that the proposal, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's 3.4 or 3.6 acres of, yes, maybe it's not protected land, but it is open space in the heart of town to put a potential new structure in. And if you looked at the design, not saying it's a bad design, but there's quite a lot of pavement and hardscape there. So on the one hand, where we're supposed to also be maybe wanting to put $500,000 into a open land acquisition fund, in an unknown location, unknown time, and an unknown cost. It seems goofy to me to put a big building where we have a very cherished and well-used plot. So, and given what we just went through with the library in the battle, and it was a battle about the existing 2 planes of a 1913 building that were incorporated into an expansion, right? And people feel very strongly about it. One of the pluses that we could get in renovating as new, and very important that it's renovated as new, and it's a 50-year-old building that gives us 50 years. No compromise on that, is the ability to actually take that building and make it even more historic. Return the windows back to the regular place. And then we know the traffic works there. We don't have to move it somewhere else. And it is, there could be some, economic analysis. If you move, you could potentially get revenues in, but we've seen other police departments who have moved out of their buildings and not quite the same prime space, but still don't know what to do with their old buildings. So it's less risky. In my view.
Okay.
and we will, yeah.
We're gonna have a couple meetings on this.
We'll have some meetings and we'll obviously get some more data, but I think, again, right now, things would lean towards renovating.
I would just,
or
I would
rebuilding.
take a pause and hesitate, though, to continue to look at sites that have been rejected for other things, including that spot when the Board of Ed wanted to put all the buses there, build a big berm and put a ton of hemlock trees. Every elected official came before the Board of Ed and spoke against it. This is 15 years and it shouldn't have happened
It was
again,
approved and it went to
Kevin.
referendum.
No, that was a proposal by the Board of Ed. And frankly, I think that's why the Bach Amendment ever got passed,
No,
because it
that
was,
was the stadium. Anyway.
no, this was the buses parked in the open space in that field. It went over like a lead bomb.
Well, I don't know how the
So-
other sites got
I
identified, if
don't
that was done
either,
by the town council chair or not, I'm not sure, but regardless, on we move. That was our update. We will probably not have anything to really discuss We won't have it for November. You
I think you'll have
You
it.
Okay, all right, okay. All right, we will do it as item number 3 that meeting, not number 10.
At least you'll have the current renovation.
Right.
Versus build new at
Right,
current
Sure.
location.
right.
Sure.
The committee will bring that.
That's good. Okay, okay, thank you. Okay, Linda, we got a couple items we have to approve.
Sure, we have a couple of review line item transfers, and these are from last month, if you recall, they didn't get uploaded to the tablets, so I said I'd bring them back.
Mhm.
So those are just for your review, those are fiscal year 21 transfers, just cleaning out accounts, they don't change the overall bottom line number. I do have one for your approval, which is a transfer from contingency, and you have a memo from Tiger related to the
We do.
Tiger mower. A purchase of a Tiger mower. We had a mower, a McConnell mower, that had been giving us some problems. We've gone back and forth with the supplier. Eventually, the supplier agreed to refund us the full cost amount, which is the $52,000. The mower that we're replacing cost about $20,000 more. It's gone up in the past 4 years since we had these mowers. And therefore, what Tiger's requesting is the additional $20,000 from contingency into the project to be combined with the refund so that we could purchase the mowers.
You know, California just passed a law outlawing internal combustion engines for lawnmowers and chainsaws and weed whackers. It's not going into effect till 2024, but it's something to consider.
This is a great big machine that mows the grass on the side of the road. We need one of those. We have 2. This one needs to be replaced.
What happened to it? I remember this in the capital projects. What happened?
So we had the McConnell mowers, but they
Yeah.
kept breaking down, getting
Yeah.
parts were
Made
issued.
in Ireland, didn't work.
We
Oh,
kept going back and
stop.
they just weren't doing the work. And
All
so
right.
they spent a lot more time in the shop than on the
Oh,
field.
that's too
And
bad.
Therefore, through Tiger's negotiation, they agreed to refund us the full amount, but there's a differential.
I'll make a motion. This is a home run.
Second,
Yeah.
I'm asking. Amy second. All in favor of the Moore mower versus the Tiger mower? All in favor?
Tiger mower versus that.
So is that a brand name or did Tiger get to name them all? Just had to know that. Couldn't help.
It better not break down.
He wished it was called something else.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
He does, right.
I think he did name it
I'm
something
pretty sure
else.
Delta would like the
Yeah.
Delta variant to be named
Oh,
something
I
else,
think
too.
they got the 52,000.
Okay,
We did
So
well.
moved, okay?
Yep.
That's it? Okay, meeting schedule. Need a motion to approve the meeting schedule. It was on your tablets. It's right here.
So moved.
So moved.
Actually, I know some of those meetings are early, aren't they? Are they?
When you mean early, what do you mean early?
The Board of Finance meetings are always the second Tuesday of the year, are they not?
Yes.
Second Tuesday of the month.
Yep.
And is this new schedule, does that adhere to that rule?
The schedule mirrors exactly what last year's schedule. We have to take into account school vacations at times.
Yeah.
So sometimes there's some fluctuation there,
Actually-
and certainly with the budget.
The early months.
Actually, that's a
Okay.
good-
Jumping around.
Well,
There's
April 5th is not the second Tuesday,
That's you setting the middle way.
regular meeting.
Well, it's regular if it's scheduled as opposed to date. Yeah.
They're all regular meetings.
Yeah.
There's a whole calendar of events that you have to follow, requirements that you have to follow. instead of
Okay.
certain things.
That's why there's a couple specials for those reasons, and they have to time out to other meetings for that one in particular. Okay, good, good.
But they're regular if they're scheduled, so they're all regular. If you vote on them tonight, they're regular.
You know, the February ones are budget.
Yeah, I knew that. It's just the first week of the month is a little tough for me.
All right, I do like the attempt here in August, no meeting.
How many August
I think
meetings do we have?
We did real well
We
this
whiffed
year.
badly this year.
An expression of
We
President
had
intent.
3.
Okay, I know, PTSD. Okay,
Yeah.
so.
You need a motion.
A motion to approve?
So moved.
Who was that? Oh,
I
Tom.
already moved, so
Tom
Chris
moved
is
it,
a
Chris
second.
second, all in
Yeah.
favor?
Done.
Not unanimous. Neil did not vote. Just wanna- Yep, yeah. Saved by
Getting a
Bill.
cocktail.
Okay, that's that. Thank you. Subcommittee assignments. Do you have anything you want to announce?
Yeah, I want to add, Board of Ed, Colin wants to add to that. Goblin, and he also would be on Public Safety Services.
Okay, he's the new George.
He's our new George,
Okay.
except this one, I
Okay.
guess we'll eliminate.
All right, good.
Okay?
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Anybody else?
What about me?
What's Victor on?
You already were on, right?
I didn't see myself. I didn't see my name
Where are
anywhere.
you?
You did have him, yeah, he's on, oh no.
What would you like to do?
I
if
thought- you know what?
You
I
didn't get
thought-
back to me, I guess, no?
He was supposed to be
I thought,
on-
where's the,
I
this
thought he
list?
was
I thought you
on,
were on here.
On Public Work.
I
on,
thought-
s-
I thought you
CPW.
were.
Oh, you forgot me, didn't you?
Um. No, I
Wasn't
guess
he going to
didn't
be on
get
Public
that.
Works?
No, it's Amy and Mike, and that's Park and.
No,
Rec.
he should be on, right here. He should be Infrastructure, Utilities, Public Works,
All right, let's add,
Victor.
yeah.
That's right?
Actually, I thought it was going to be Board of Education.
Well, we talked about, it. You were gonna get back to me. You wanted, so,
Victor, if you want that, I'll take one of the other committees.
well, you're doing police, you're doing public safety. You were thinking about public safety. You don't.
What would you prefer?
I was
I
gonna
prefer
put you
Board
on
of Education.
Okay.
Because you've got kids and.
Yeah.
Board of Ed it
I
is?
was
All right,
saying-
Is that
okay.
okay with you?
Yeah, I'll take public safety.
Okay.
All right, okay.
Okay. That means getting off the hook on
So
infrastructure?
you're not going to be on infrastructure?
Do you
Okay,
need
Board of Ed's
somebody?
A lot to
got
learn,
we got
yeah. All right.
And don't you have a committee for library?
No, we have, that's already on. You're on here.
Library?
Well, I gave it, you didn't want to put that on. I have Chris and Neil. No, that's good.
There's no library.
It's under finance
general
and government.
General government library.
Yes, I
Chris.
put it under the
It's the
general.
third one. Director of Board of Ed.
Oh, I see. You've got it bifurcated. Okay.
Yep, is that all
I stand
right?
corrected, my fault.
All right,
No worries.
okay.
Okay, motion to approve?
Move.
Bob and Victor second.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye, opposed, none? Good.
So who
Okay.
moved?
Bob. Okay, that is the end of our regular meeting. We need to have a motion to move to
Sure.
executive session
And invite in
and invite in
Superintendent Tucker, Linda.
Tucker, Linda, the superintendent, and Katrina, the chairman of the board of that.
And only Neil stays on the,
And only Neil stays on TV.
And Carl?
Okay. Okay, I can motion and move that though, while you do that. Okay, so that was my motion.
and we won't
That's
take a
Steve.
vote when we come out of executive session. So
Steve?
we'll just adjourn.
Steve needs to be there. Steve Carl?
If you want to invite him.
Yeah, I'd like to invite Steve.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you doing,
So now that we know what the ask is, you need.
I did. It's Chris Labrie and me.
yeah, I know, but we didn't discuss it. I
No,
mean,
we're gonna do
okay,
that in November.
All right, okay.
Okay, I need a motion for those invites. Tom?
So
second.
moved.
So move.
Please, Chris,
Chris.
second, all in favor? Moving to
Aye.
executive session with those invitees, opposed? So moved. Okay.
Oh, Lord, all right. So what were your other two things? So I just wrote. What am I looking at here? I don't like doing things last minute. Thank you.
Right?
Again.
Oh, I didn't bring my
I do.
Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Tom, second.
Second.
Bob Hamel, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None.
None.
We are done. Thank you, everybody.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.